Tonight, the Ghana Bishop Conference is asking, what business do you have as a Muslim student to be in a Catholic school?
Should be ready to go through education in the Catholic or Methodist or Presbyterian environment. Not all of them. And there are Catholics who will be ready to go to Muslim environment and study. You see, you go there to be educated.
Well, the issue of discrimination against Muslims in schools and colleges has taken a steamy turn as the Bishops' Conference issues what sounds like a threatening statement for heads of its institutions not to be intimidated by threats of sanctions. Are we heading towards a head-on collision of Catholic institutions and the state over a recent directive for Muslims not to be forced into Christian worships at schools and colleges? This is today's big story with me, Stephen Anti. Today's big story is brought to you in association with Lifeline Properties, affordable, quality and comfortable housing. Now, the Ghana National Catholic Bishops' Conference has issued a statement which sounds like a challenge to a recent directive for Muslims not to be forced to attend Christian worships in schools and colleges. But first, let's hear the Minister of Education, Professor Nana Opoku Ajiman, on the matter.
Religion is a very sensitive matter, and we need to approach the subject with all the sensitivity and the respect that is required. If the school is a Muslim school, I will not expect that every child in that school, regardless the background, is obliged to conform to certain practices. And the reverse is true. If it is a Christian school, again, you see, and a lot of the schools have done this very, very well, even within the same religion. I went to a Methodist school, and I remember that non-Methodists who came to the school, who were admitted into that school, had parents who said, we didn't want our children to go to the Methodist service. There were schools that would say, if the child doesn't belong to this church, the child cannot come to the school. Even within the same religion we have. Now, across religions, it becomes even more complex.
Yes.
So that's why we need to step back and ask ourselves, what is the school? The school is an environment that allows learning to occur. It should be non-threatening. So coercion of any kind should not be tolerated. The school is a place for children to learn to tolerate, to respect diversity. Okay, and all of these are very important. They are the soft skills that we require in our world today. Understanding, respect for diversity, respect for different opinions, acceptance for things that are not familiar with us. So the broader picture should also guide what it is that we do. Okay, in terms of taking picture and so on, I'm not sure how to respond to that, because there are guidelines, and I'm sure all peoples of all religions taking passport pictures will have to take the pictures under certain conditions. And that has nothing to do with education and what it is. But
well, you heard us say coercion of any kind should not be tolerated in schools. Let me now quickly run you through the statement signed by Most Reverend Joseph Osei. It starts by saying, we, the members of the Ghana Catholic Bishop Conference, have followed with grave concern the recent developments in our dear nation with respect to calls for unregulated religious practices in our schools. We note, in particular, the unwarranted threats of sanction coming from government circles. Needless, we are stating that no citizen in Ghana should allow him or herself to be cowed down by intimidation or threat of sanction from any individuals. Consequently, we wish to assure heads of our Catholic educational institutions to remain resolute and not feel unduly intimidated by threats of sanctions. we expect our heads to continue to manage our schools in ways and practices that are in conformity with our Catholic identity and mission. Meanwhile, we're open to initiating dialogue that will bring consensus as early as possible to resolve these issues amicably. The statement concludes that we join the Christian Council in Ghana in advocating dialogue on the issue at stake. We believe that the Ghana Peace Council has the capacity to deal with this issue in broad consultation with all stakeholders, especially religious leaders who own and manage the mission schools. Until this is done, we wish to call on government and all other persons to refrain from issuing statements or making pronouncements which may not help in finding a peaceful solution to the issue. Dialogue is the key for reasoning with others. Through dialogue, we obtain justice and peace. So that's the whole statement I've read to you. We'll be going back and forth into that statement to discuss it thoroughly. But our reporter Eric Curtis Howard went to the Catholic Secretariat to speak to the Secretary General there.
There will be Muslims who will be ready to go through education in the Catholic or Methodist or Presbyterian environment. Not all of them. And there are Catholics who will be ready to go to Muslim environment and study. You see, you go there to be educated. And the syllabus, we don't have something on Catholic that you have to by all means learn. No, you go through the syllabus. But the environment that you do that is a Christian environment, it's a Muslim environment. And that is all. That is all. So you have to accept the environment. And if you accept the environment, then you go through that environment.
So for those who can't accept, they should
why should you go there? For you to suffer. And then you come out to say, oh, they are doing this, they are doing that. It's an environment. That is why the Bishops' Conference from day one spoke against the computer selection thing, the CSSPS. They spoke against it because you deny people from choosing to go where they want to go. In the olden days, you fill the form, you take it to the school that you want to go. If you don't get it, then you decide to go to another school. But now, it's computer pine, it is there. He goes to Koforidua, Pope John's. Yes, he selected about 4 or 5. He is taken to one of them, which is a different, the environment that maybe he didn't like. Only that he is asked to choose 4 or 5 schools. And so maybe he puts that one, the 4th one, and that is where he's taken to. And that is not his choice. His first choice is maybe where he wanted to go. He wanted to go to Tamale School. He's not taken, and so he's taken to Pope John's. What happens? So these are the issues. We have to sit down. A whole lot of the partnership in education, the computer selection thing, and then we can move forward.
Right, let's now go to the telephone line quickly and speak to Michael Insoa, who is a former Director General of the Ghana Education Service, is joining us. We also join on the other telephone line by Sheikh Shuaib Arimia, who is an Islamic scholar who will be engaging the issue together with these gentlemen. Good evening, sir, and thanks for your time.
Good evening.
It does appear that this is becoming a bit steamy. Here, government has issued a directive, more like ordering everybody to accept religious diversity in schools. And the Catholic Bishop Conference refers to that as an unregulated religious activities in schools. Do you feel
Groups or the mission have played a role, and they continue to have a role.
Mr. Soa, I'll have you raise your voice a little. You're a bit down in your tempo, so we can't hear you. So you were saying that the government should have taken a stance which looked reconciliatory rather than adapting the posturing that appears that it was in favor of one side against the other. But, I mean, the Catholic Bishop Conference, for them to come out to say that it's heads of institutions should not be afraid of threats of sanctions or intimidation of threats of sanction. It's like a throw in the face of government's directive.
You see, sometimes some of these statements from government officials they have not even studied the situation in the schools. Then they come out with a blanket statement that, look, everybody has the right, certainly everybody has the right to peace or religion. But, you also have a right of choice. And the choice is based on so many factors. And to choose a school, I believe one of the major considerations is the school's ability to provide quality education. And once you decide to go there, you don't go there to go and change things in the school. You are not there to change things. You are there to be part
to learn.
So that they don't continue to,
But Mr. Zoa, let's take the scenario that Reverend Father Nicholas Afriye raised in our interview with him. He said that if, for example, you are a Muslim and you applied to a particular school, you didn't get admission, but you got your second choice, which is, let's say, Pope Jones Secondary School, which is a seminary as well. Now, if you go to a seminarian, you go to a seminary as a Muslim, you have to adhere to the principles, the rules of the seminary. So if there is church service and church service is part of the training in the seminary, must you be forced as a Muslim to adhere to those? Would that not be a violation of your right to religious freedom?
If you know it's a seminary, why would you want to choose a seminary? And go to a seminary.
So what business has a Muslim got to do in a seminary? That's the question, right?
No, we know what happens in the seminary. So why would a Muslim choose to go to a seminary? You see, the school has been set up purposely to train seminarians. So why would a Muslim or even other Christian people want to go to a seminary and therefore, create a problem for him or herself?
But if the school is noted for its strength in one area of training or the other, let's say if Presec or Pope Jones is noted for being strong in the sciences, anybody who wants to be also, be a good student in the sciences would love to go to these schools. So why would religion have to be the barrier against your ability to acquire the skills that you need in your formative years?
You're also not looking at the other side. This school has been set up purposely to train seminarians. So that is it. So if you are making your choice, whether first choice, second choice, third choice, I think you need to avoid. Because when you go there, you do what the seminarians do. Because that is why that school was set up. So I don't see why you want to select a school that trains seminarians.
But would we not be living backward if we adopt this? That if you were a Christian, you go to a Christian school. If you were a Muslim, you go to a Muslim school. What kind of life and society would we be building if we encourage that kind of living together?
Currently, there are more public schools than mission schools. As far as the mission schools are concerned, there are more public schools than mission schools. So if you are making your choice, take all these things into consideration. I still feel that we have not actually assessed this,
right,
without any bias. Because I have been a headmaster of a Catholic school. I also attended Ahmadiyya
secondary school.
Primary, so primary. Primary, those days, we were going to school on Sunday.
Right.
So I was denied the opportunity to go to church on Sunday.
Right, Mr. Zoa, I'll have you hold briefly. We'll go back. We had an exclusive interview with Reverend Nicholas Afriye, and we'll play that back and we'll continue our discussion.
Who is supposed to educate Ghanaians? Is it not the government? And the government is not able to do it. And that is why religious bodies came in to help. And that is why the government over the years has supported these religious bodies, so that they will educate citizens, not Catholics, not Presbyterians, not Methodists, but to educate citizens of the nation. And we have been able to do that. We have been able to do that over the years. And so if you are paying the salaries of the staff, it doesn't mean that that is the end. Can you pay people in the street and then they educate people? No. Somebody built it with their own resources. Built the school, and then is, oh, okay, now because it is your citizens come in to support. And so it should be a partnership. And we have this model all over the world. It should be a partnership. It doesn't mean that because you are paying the school. What about the buildings? Who put up these buildings? Nobody is talking about these things. So that is the issue. You are paying salaries, yes, but that is not all. Why is it that the public schools, some of the public schools are not doing well? Most often you see schools doing well and they are religious, they belong to the missions. They are being run by the religious bodies. That is what we have to take it from. And people acquire the knowledge, and now they begin to turn against these mission schools. I mean, it's not the best. We have to sit down and talk about these things frankly.
So right now you are calling for a national dialogue to solve this?
It's in the statement that we are ready to go by whatever the Peace Council will come. And as a religious body, you go by them, by whatever they
Okay, so if I get it clear, what you are trying to say per your statement is that all your Catholic schools, from St. Augustine's to
St. James, St. Sunyan, St. Charles, and
Xavier, if a Muslim happens to find himself in that school, the Muslim must go according to the Catholic principles and doctrines.
And that is what he accepted. That is why he accepted to go there. He wants to go through the Catholic environment. You see, the schools were established by these churches. Catholic, for instance, let's take the Catholic Church. We established the schools to train people in the Catholic environment.
Well, we've not been able to raise onto the telephone line our Islamic scholar to engage the issue back-to-back with the former boss of the Ghana Education Services. We've been trying to reach the Christian Council of Ghana, which is not exactly ready to make comments about this. So we'll pause here, we'll take a break, and we'll be right back. We'll follow through with the second issue for tonight. Do stay. Well, welcome back. Also tonight, the tussle over the issue of genetically modified products in Ghana has taken a different dimension as an Accra High Court rules on elements of a court case brought up by an agricultural advocacy group, Food Sovereignty Ghana. The group filed an injunction to stop trials and commercialization of GM products in Ghana, arguing that allowing agencies such as CSIR to go ahead with testing the large-scale production of cowpeas, rice, and maize, for example, using GM technology could be against the law or would be against the law. But today, the High Court ordered some amendments which might frustrate the efforts to completely outlaw GM products in Ghana. We have in the studio now Evans Tewia, who is the communications director in charge of, did you say governance and politics?
Politics and economic.
Politics and economic affairs for the Food Sovereignty Ghana. We also have on the telephone line Eric Amwening Okori, who is acting CEO of the Biosafety Authority. Gentlemen, we're grateful that you could join us. Good evening, sir. So I start with you in the studio. What was the court ruling today about? Was there a ruling or there was not?
I will not call it a ruling, but technically there is an injunction on the Food and Agriculture Ministry, CSIR, and anybody who is involved in introduction of GMOs into Ghana.
So when you said there is an injunction, what did you mean? You applied to the court for the injunction.
We applied for injunction.
But the injunction was not granted today. The court referred you to April 2nd, Thursday, to come for that hearing.
According to the judge, in the law, when I bring an injunction against you, until the court decides the injunction is in effect. So last on the 17th, when we sat on the first case on the matter, they said that from the 17th to today, they cannot go on to release the commercialization of GMO into the system.
So let me stop you. We're using too many large words that people might not understand. You went to court to stop the state or state agencies like the CSIR, Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, from going ahead with trials of genetically modified products. You are concerned that they will be breaking the law, or what? That they will be feeding poison to Ghanaians?
Basically, we don't want GMOs to come into the system, but they are saying they are going according to the law to bring GMOs, but they have flouted all the laws.
Flouted the laws?
Yes, the law says that there should be a biosafety authority who should take care of...
But there is a biosafety authority.
There wasn't until we went to court on the 17th, and on the 18th, they inaugurated a board. You get it?
Okay.
Actually, Food Sovereignty Ghana applied for risk assessment of GMO into the country. Several days, months, they were not minding us.
Until
the day
you
we
went
served
to
them court sermons, the next day they called us for the risk assessment document. Then on the 17th, when we went to court, the next day they implemented the biosafety board. Something that should have been done long time ago, but 4 years now.
But then technically that will be question your court case then. If you went to court to challenge the existence of the biosafety committee, which you says was against the law, its establishment was in violation of the 2011 law.
The biosafety committee doesn't have the mandate to supervise GMO's activities in the country. The only one that has authority is the biosafety authority, which was not in place.
Let me pause you. I think I have on the line. Mr. Eric Amweni-Okori, who is the acting CEO of the Biosafety Authority. Good evening, sir. I'm happy that you could join us. Now, the issue at hand now is the fact that the Food Sovereignty went to court to place an injunction on the trials and commercialization of GMO genetically modified products in Ghana. Now, in court today, we thought that there was an injunction granted, but as I have been told, there was no such injunction. You were in court today. Tell me your version of events in court today.
Yeah, thank you very much. A little bit of correction. My name is Eric Amweni-Okori, not Amweni-Okori.
Okay, Amweni, that's fine.
Okori. And I was in court today. I saw everything that went on. The background is that Food Sovereignty has gone to court, an injunction to stop the National Biosafety Committee from commercializing GMOs and also releasing them into the environment. Commercialization and environmental release of GMOs into the country.
That's right.
Not for research. The injunction is for commercialization and environmental release.
That's right.
They are saying that the NBC hasn't got the right to do that. Now, your question, in court, what happened today? About the injunction, the court did not hear the case
at all.
I mean, that matter today at all.
Okay.
They just said the injunction, the case concerning the injunction will be heard on 2nd April 2015.
Right.
And then again, the next thing that happened was that Attorney General made a request that Attorney General itself, which is the government lawyer, together with the newly formed National Biosafety Authority, should be joined in the case.
In the case.
Because they are interested parties. And the judge accepted it. He said, okay, if you want me to join you in this case, I have accepted it. So Attorney General, National Biosafety Authority, National Biodiversity Committee, and then strangely, Ministry of Food and Agriculture are joined in this matter.
In the suit.
Yes. The third thing that happened in court was that their lawyer came to court a little bit disorganized. One, some pages in some of the affidavits we submitted were missing. Two of them.
Unfair.
One page 4 and page 10. And yesterday he wanted to submit those 2 pages in court. And the court the judge told him, look,
Mr. Corey, I'm afraid I should allow you to continue, but our time is up. We couldn't get you on time, and we'll continue this discussion a lot more in detail. So we're grateful for your time. So quickly, you have something to say. We don't have the time. 2 seconds.
Okay.
What I'm saying, first of all, he doesn't have to go attacking our lawyer. There's nothing that shows that the lawyer was disorganized or something. You rather were disorganized because
Mr. Terry, we don't want to go back and forth.
So, but what I'm saying
is
that technically there's injunction on commercialization of GMO into the country.
But
until we go to court on the 2nd,
and it is granted. Yes. If it's not granted, then you cannot say there is an injunction.
No, that's what I said. Technically. Technically, because until then they cannot go when that is amounts to contempt of court. So now they cannot until the judge decides the case on the 2nd.
Thank you very much. Tavia Evans is the communications director in charge of governance at the Food Sovereignty Ghana. I beg your pardon, the name escaped me. My name is Stephen Enti, and we're grateful that you could join us on today's big story. We'll be right back with the interactive segment. Do stay.